Welcome to the Rachel Roth Show. This is a continuation of my interview with my woo-mate, Rebekah Anderson, who is my twin sister. And we actually just wrapped up our first episode, which was talking about our amazing trip to Tanzania and going and doing site visits and seeing, and it was so impactful. It was amazing. But now we would like to jump in and go through the actual hike of Kilimanjaro because, oh my gosh, there was no way to prepare for this. So Rebekah, welcome back.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
It feels funny because I know this is a different episode that'll be aired at a different time, but I just saw you a minute ago,
I know. I love it. Well, it's great because I scheduled it specifically for today because last night, one of our friends that we hiked Kilimanjaro with was actually in town for a business meeting. And so me and my husband and my boys went to go have dinner with him, J Mike. And I was like, Rebekah, let's do this episode after I go have dinner with him because I know that we're going to be talking about the hike. And so it will, it's just going to get me all excited. So here we go. I mean, it was, so we wrap up our emotional, just absolutely life-changing trip to Tanzania on doing the site visits. And then it was time to drive. And they're like, okay, we have finished with our site visits. And now we're going to head to Kilaminjaro. So on the last episode, we talked about kind of how this trip came about and how life-changing it was for us. I am a lifelong adventurer. I mean, truly, like when Rebekah and I were in high school, we started traveling all over. Like we went to Austria for a month and lived with different families there. And I just traveled the world as much as I could in college. And so when this fell into my lap and they said, do you want to hike Mount Kilimanjaro? My first thought was, I have heard of Mount Kilimanjaro, but I have no idea where it is. Did you know where it was, Rebekah?
I just knew Africa. I didn't know where in Africa, but I knew it was Africa.
Well, you are ahead of me because geography is not my strong suit. And I had no clue where in the world Kilaminjaro was. So later on in the conversation, my friend Lori did say, you'll be going to Africa. And I said, oh, okay, cool. I put two and two together and said, Mount Kilimanjaro must be in Africa. That's how prepared I was for this trip. But I'll tell you, I was so excited because I kind of thought my adventures had passed me by. I kind of thought that this was over for me. And I just didn't think that I would ever have something like this cross my path. And so, you have kids, you settle down, you buy a house, and the kind of those fly by the seat of your pants adventures just don't come around as often. So we started training 4 months in advance. And I don't know. I mean, I started by just walking my neighborhood. What about you?
Yeah, it's sort of the same. And we've talked about it. Rachel and I both consistently work out. And so I just upped my game. I started working with heavier weights in all of my weight workouts and then wearing this weighted vest because Rachel had gotten some advice and it made sense to wear a weighted vest because we were going to be carrying our packs. And then the last 2 months being in Austin, we have so many hills. I was able to go on some hikes. Clearly nothing like what we were about to tackle, but it at least let me, really break in my shoes, use my poles and do, just a little warm up.
The really good news that we're so grateful for is that Austin and Fort Worth are at such a high elevation. Really prepared us for that. I mean, could we get any lower? Could we? I'm
just over sea level. Yeah.
Yeah, we are as low as you can go. And so with the prep, we started weightlifting, doing cardio. One time I did the stair stepper with my weighted backpack. And it just about killed me. I say one time because I never went back and did it again, ever again. I mean, but I did work out every single day in preparation because I did not know really kind of what to expect. And so I just was like, I'm just gonna work out and be as strong as I can possibly be. You too?
And yes, definitely. And then we have an uncle who is a pathologist and probably one of the smartest people we know, if not the smartest.
I'm pretty
And
sure he's
he
the
told us,
smartest.
yeah, he told us at Easter that if we could go to a higher altitude before we left for this hike, it would be good to, really kind of build up your blood. I think it's your hemoglobin level. I can't remember exactly what he said. Just to
That
help
sounds
build it
good.
up and get used to, yeah, get used to
Yeah.
that higher altitude. So we did do that 2 weeks before we left for Africa. We went to Breckenridge for a week.
Yeah. Our kids got out
And
of school and both of our families, we both have two kids. So the eight of us went and we had so much fun.
oh, it was so fun.
It was so fun, but I was shocked. Rebecca had been preparing for the altitude. And I'll tell you, this was also my biggest fear. When I called her and I said, do you want to do this trip with me? Through our tears, I said, I am really worried about your migraine headaches. Rebecca has gotten migraines since we were 2 years old. Remember, we're twins. The reason my mom knows that is because as she grew older, it's like she would get a headache, she would vomit. What else? How?
Oh yeah, just horrible, debilitating pain. And I
Yeah.
would just, when I was younger, I would just cry and cry and cry, which would make it so much worse. But
Mhm.
yes, so I got a spanking when I was 2 and I cried and gave myself really the first migraine. And so that's kind of where it started. And I think it was my way of getting out of spanking.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I still got them
Um,
somewhat, but not as much, yeah,
yeah,
as you.
I got enough for both of
hmm
us, so it's just fine.
hmm
I was
But you needed them, so.
I did. I was not a well-behaved child. And yeah, never really have been, so it's okay. But anyway,
True.
even as an adult. But
hmm
so this was my biggest fear going into this. So when we got to Colorado, I was shocked. I had not been worried at all about myself in the altitude. I had been worried about Rebecca in the altitude, and I got hit with it so hard in Colorado. What were we at?
hmm
11,000 feet of elevation?
hmm No,
11,000 feet of elevation.
we were at 9,000.
Oh
We're
no, really?
Our house is
Okay,
at
so
9,800.
yes,
Yeah.
just to let you know, Mount Kilimanjaro is 19,341 feet of elevation. So we were 10,000 feet below the peak,
Mhm.
the summit of Kilimanjaro, and I felt the elevation badly. And so I'm so grateful. We went on a long hike, but I'm so grateful that I was able to kind of identify what I needed to do. There's an elevation medicine called Diamox. And so Rebecca had already
Mhm.
gotten that and she was taking that on the trip. I just kind of didn't think I needed it. Yes, I did. Go
Well, and
ahead.
I've had altitude problems before when we've gone to Breckenridge or, and anywhere in the area to ski. So I had done tons of research on things. And so I had my whole little set of supplements and I had a schedule of when to take what. And I never even got a headache in Breckenridge. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So I really felt very confident about handling the altitude.
Yeah,
So
here's what I want you to
maybe a
know. I
little
called
naive.
Rebecca and I really didn't know because we don't often travel to Colorado together. We'll go like with our family or with our little tiny families or like with friends or whatever. What I did not know is that Rebecca accepted this trip when I called her. She said, absolutely, this sounds amazing. And then we went to Colorado and she informed me that usually the entire first day in Colorado, she has to go to urgent care to get cared for because of her altitude sickness. And I said,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, what? Why did you accept this trip? And now we're pot committed and your ticket has been purchased. You have to go. And I did not even know this. Like, what? I was shocked.
Yes, but after the last time 2 years ago when we went to Breckenridge to ski, and I missed the whole first day of skiing with my family because I was in urgent care. I, at that time, had even started researching because I knew I never wanted to do that again. And so I had found some things that would help. And so I felt very confident when you threw out Kilimanjaro that I could get it under control.
Yeah, because it's
Mhm.
only 10,000 feet higher than the
Right. No big
elevation that we
deal.
typically go to in Colorado. So it's no big deal. So we took a hike. So this was like our prep. Okay, so we get there, we do the compassion visits, and I think that was great because we got kind of more acclimated. There was a little bit of elevation. I think we were like at 5,000 feet.
6,600 or something.
Oh,
Mhm.
6,600. Okay. And so we kind of got acclimated for a few days. I never felt a single bit of altitude when we were in Tanzania. So we finish our site visits and they say, okay, it's go time. And our guide, it's a British guy and his name is Ben and he's just amazing. And we had multiple Zoom calls with him. And it's really funny because everybody was like, Ben, and we would tease him and me and Rebecca would not tease him. Rebecca and I would not tease him, but other people would tease him and they would say, Ben, like, you are such a doomsday guy. Like you're painting this picture, like it's just going to be awful, whatever. And he would just kind of laugh and he'd be like, no, I just really want you to be prepared. Little did we know, Ben was like trying his hardest to prepare us for what was coming because it was absolutely the hardest thing we have ever done. Like, absolutely.
To the point that one day I was walking behind Ben, maybe like day 3, and I was like, hey, how's it going? And he's done this. This was his 27th time to do Kilimanjaro. And so I said to him, I said, Ben, like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And he looked at me and goes, well, I'm just thinking about day 5 and just dreading it. And I looked at him and I said, what? And he goes, oh, I'm just dreading summit day. It's just so hard. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's done it 26 times, 26 times, and he was dreading it. At that point, we were so far in, we're day 3. There's no turning around at that point. But I did kind of have an idea that it was going to be awful.
So you're so good with details, like way better than me. Because I just sort of float through life. I don't pay attention to a lot of details. So what was the route that we took? It was 6 days, 5 nights.
We took the Rongai route, Rongai, Rongai route, and it's the north side. So we had to drive, they said between 5 and 6 hours, and it really was about 5 hours to the north side of Kilimanjaro. So there's 7 routes that you can take. We took this north side. The north side is a lot prettier. It's a beautiful route. You get to experience like all these different climates and just different, the geography changes, the plant life changes, everything changes. It's a lot less traffic, which was so, so nice. We didn't understand it until we came down on the south side the last day and it was a lot busier. And so we really didn't pass very many people at all going up this Rongai route. We also found out at the end that the Rongai route is one of the hardest routes up. So I would say even now, like I really want to go back and do it again with my husband, I would take that same route because it was so beautiful. It is so hard that last day, but it is so worth it.
Oh, it's so amazing. Okay. When we were packing, I mean, we watched all the videos, we read all the blogs, we like had a checklist. And so it was Rebecca, Lori, and I, and there was 12 of us total. Rebecca, Lori, and I were on a group text, and Lori was the one that invited us on this trip. And so we had this checklist and we were, I mean, checking it twice. We were like Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, just getting everything marked off that list. Like, yep. And I felt really prepared. One of the things that we really, really prepared for is that we took at least 4 years worth of snacks with us for that 6-day trek. Rebecca and I were like, okay, I'm going to go to Costco and I'm going to get this massive amount of snacks and I'm going to get this trail mix and you get this, I'll get this, we'll get chomps, we'll get protein bars, we'll get all this stuff. Because what we imagined was we're going to be hiking. We don't know what the food is going to be like. And just so you know, legally, you have to have a guide company take you up the mountain. And so the guide company, Ben is our guide company or he was our guide. And then he has
his company.
Yeah, go ahead.
His company is called Right Foot. And Right Foot he's based in the UK. And basically he organizes every single detail of the trip. And he contracts with a company called Safari Trails that's local to Tanzania that provides all the porters, which is like Sherpas, and the guides and the cooks, everything. They provide all the people that go up the mountain with you. His company just is in charge of all of organizing every detail that you could imagine.
You just said that far more eloquently than I ever could have. Right. So, yep,
we're just gonna the details, the details.
So we did not know. So they provide your meals, they carry up a lot of your weight. So they carry up like your tent, your sleeping bag, all of the supplies. They do provide a portable toilet, which we were very grateful for. Um,
Very, very
and
grateful for.
we'll get into the portable toilet a little bit more, but it
Mhm.
was, man, that might be my most valued item on the trip, like for real.
100%. Yeah.
We had just come from Tanzania where every single toilet outside of the hotel, every single toilet was a hole in the ground. And there was a little porcelain kind of like uh thing
Full.
surrounding bowl, yes.
Mhm.
But literally Rebecca and I had been squatting,
Mhm.
and that had been our, so this toilet, this portable toilet, the poor porter,
Camping toilet.
the camping toilet, and the porter that had to carry that around,
Mhm.
like, bless his heart, they do get paid more,
Mhm.
rightly so. And yeah, bless him. But so we did not know what the food was going to be like. We didn't know what to expect. So we took so many snacks. That was the one thing that we overpacked for sure. That we did not, because yeah, we did not, you don't have an appetite. Like you start getting in that altitude and we could not eat. Like the last 3
Mhm.
days of the trip, I barely ate anything, which is terrible.
Mhm.
But I was just trying to get water in as much as I could because you are so high, you are feeling that
Mhm.
altitude. Um, and
And
so
we were told in advance, we knew that we were each going to have a porter that would carry our big pack, our big duffel. And we were just going to have a day pack every day that would be able to pack with snacks and waters and all that. But our duffels could only be 33 pounds. And
yeah,
so the night before, we're packing our duffels, and somebody had a scale, with us. And
Kelsey,
I go to weigh mine.
let's give her credit. Kelsey
Yes,
Todd,
yes,
who's now one of
yes.
our best friends on the
Uh-huh.
trip. She went on the trip and she had one of those scales that you hold up, and it was so beneficial.
But
We got,
I go to weigh mine for the first time, and I'm like, I think, gotten it down to the bare minimums, and I go to weigh it and it's 37 pounds. And I was like, oh, okay. So then you unpack basically everything. You start, taking out clothes. Really the problem was the snacks.
the
Once I
snacks.
once I really, really kind of scaled that down, it was amazing how much our snacks weighed and how much we had to leave behind at the hotel.
And then we didn't even eat them. Like that is the
Mhm.
one thing that I really wish we needed more clothes, not more snacks.
Mhm.
We needed less snacks, more clothes, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay,
We'll do
so
better next
we
time.
drive around to this north side, and we're on the Kenya side of Kilimanjaro. So as we're driving kind of around the base of Kilimanjaro to get to this north side, we can see Kenya. And that was really cool. I just didn't expect that, because pretty much all the days, I think until day 5, we can see into Kenya when we're looking down. And I felt like that was like so cool. So we drive
It was
around.
amazing. Yeah. Keep going.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so we start day 1, and we get to this base, the gate that you have to go through on this north side Rongai route. And they provide us a little box lunch. And so we sat and had lunch. And then we're all just kind of like hanging out, and we use the restroom, the hole in the ground. And all of a sudden it's go time. And we're like, oh, it's
It was
time.
very
It is starting.
unceremonious. Very unceremonious. We were like, okay, is there
Very.
going to be like a gun and a starting line? Like, how do we start? And they're like, let's go. Like, there was no
Mhm.
messing around at all. They were just,
And
yeah,
at this point, we get to meet, and just to put it in perspective, you have to have a guide company with you. There were 12 hikers, and there were 42 porters, guides, cooks, all the things. So there was a group of 54 of us, only 12 hikers, 42 people get you up the mountain. And so they took off a little
we
bit ahead of
needed,
us.
we needed every single one of them. You are putting your life in their hands
Mhm.
and you need every single one of them. They all play a
Mhm.
part and it is truly remarkable.
Mhm.
So
And so
anyway,
they started kind of ahead of us, and you were in awe of what they are carrying. And I have a few pictures that I took that I still will go back and look at, because they could carry up to 100 pounds. And so you would see them, they would either rest these giant packs on the backs of their necks or their heads. And literally they wouldn't use their hands. They would just carry them. And every once in a while, you would see like one hand, maybe if they were going up a steep part, to kind of like balance it a little bit. But you know, we have water and snacks basically in our day packs, and that's it. And we're like, oh, struggling to get up these steeper parts. And I'm like, I'm never complaining again because they're carrying so much more weight.
Mm, yeah. Well, it was like a 4 or 5 hour van ride to get to Kilimanjaro, 5 hours. So from the hotel. So like we woke up, there's so much adrenaline. Then you get on this bus ride. I mean, think about a 5 hour road trip. Like you're pretty ready to get out of the car, you know? Then from there, we had a 4 hour hike to get to our first campsite. So that was a long day. Like I remember being at the end of
Mhm.
that day going like, this was a legit day and we're at the lowest elevation that we're going to be at. And I just didn't even know what I was complaining about at the time. So
Mhm.
we get there, they set up camp. We did an acclimatization walk. So explain what that is, Rebecca.
So basically, they want you to drop everything off at the campsite. And then they took us up about a 30-minute hike up to a higher elevation. And it just helps your body start acclimating to that higher elevation. And then we would hang out for about 15 minutes and then come back down. And so there was only 2 or 3 nights that we had to do that because just of the way the geography of the trip. Sometimes you were higher and you would go down lower and things like that. But I was amazed because you could kind of, when you would get to the campsite, you would kind of feel the altitude and you would be like, oh man, we're definitely at a higher elevation. You would go do these walks. And by the time you came back down, you would feel so much better because your body had started to, you know, acclimate to this higher elevation. And so it made so much sense.
I did not feel that during the acclimatization walks at all. I did not feel any different. And I was like, I don't even know if this is working. But I'm really grateful we did them because had we not done them, I don't know what it would have been like. But I didn't really feel a difference. Like some people did, some people didn't. And for me, like you did, I didn't. And it's just funny how your bodies react differently to different things. So we get there, they had this mess tent. They came and they served us dinner. And Rebecca, one of her triggers for her migraines is gluten. So she's not like celiac or anything. She just stays away from gluten. So
Mhm.
she had said, she's like, I know it's high maintenance, but I have to check the box that says gluten free. And so they brought her a special meal every single day, 3 times a
Every
day,
meal.
special meal. And it was a massive amount of food. So she was always trying to pawn it off on everybody and be like, can you help me eat this? Because they were so strict. And now I understand why, because they
Mhm.
wanted us to eat as much as possible in the beginning because they know that you start to lose your appetite. And so at the beginning, they were like, you got to eat, you got to eat. You're never going to summit if you don't eat. You got to eat. You clear your plate, clear your plate. I mean,
Mhm.
they were strict.
Well, and Casty is one of the porters that became just so dear to Rachel and I. He would bring me my plate and he would look at me and he would say, promise me that you're going to clear your plate. And I remember looking at him the first day being like, sure, sure, no problem. And then the next day, the same thing happened. And I looked at him, I said, Casty, I don't eat this much food in a day, much less a meal. Like there is no way. And he said, you don't eat, you don't summit. And I'm like, yeah, 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 whatever. Oh my gosh, little did I know how true it was going to be. But and you can tell me what you thought. I was so pleasantly surprised by the food. It was delicious.
It was better in the beginning, which they told us. Like Ben told us, he
Yeah.
said the food in the beginning is better, and then by the end, I'm not trusting the meat that they have carried up. I'm like, how are you refrigerating this? How are you, so it was kind of like,
But it was great. I mean, they
it
did
was
such, you could have trusted the meat.
amazing.
Rachel's
You could have
skeptical in
trusted it.
general.
I was like, here's what I was terrified of. I was terrified of eating something and having a reaction to it on the side of the mountain. So I was like, I think I'll eat more rice. I think I'll
Mhm.
eat, they always serve soup. And they told us it's a 3 course meal every single time. So they serve soup and then they serve the main course. And then what was
Fruit.
next?
Fruit was
Fruit.
always dessert.
Yes. Yeah. Which was so great.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, the food was so much better than we expected for sure.
Yeah.
So good.
So we
So
eat dinner that first night. It was great. We were hungry that day because you were still lower. So we still had an appetite. And then they had set up our tent for us. Um, they told us that we would be in a 3-person tent. And so I am not sure what I was expecting, but it was definitely not quite as big as what I had pictured in my mind. Is that fair?
I sort of pictured like a dorm room. And I
Mhm.
thought that maybe we should even have decorations for our tent. I thought, you know what? This is going to be so fun. We're going to have so much room and we can do like, we can probably do like exercises in here. No,
Yeah.
it
No.
was like if you put 3 sleeping bags like sardines, like hot dogs. That's what Lori said. It's
Mhm.
like a package of
Yeah.
hot dogs. If you put
Mhm.
3 next to each other, that is what would fit in our tent.
And the third person that was always with us in our tent was our duffel bags. That was the middle. So we each had a sleeping mat, and then our duffel bags were the third person in the middle. So there was no extra room whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
And so the first day, we didn't have quite as much time that first night because of, we had, anyways, it felt a little overwhelming that first night to get our sleeping bags rolled out, to get changed, all of the things. And you quickly realize the very first night, you realize you are going to sleep in the clothes that you're going to hike in the next morning because it got below freezing every single night. And you were freezing and you wanted to be warm. So you slept in your clothes. The next morning, the last thing you want to think about is changing clothes when you're freezing. So we very quickly figured out you change clothes before you go to bed and you sleep in what you're going to hike in the next day.
The minute we were pretty warm that first day, the minute the sun goes down, it got cold. Like those temperatures plummeted and it was so much colder even on night 1. And even our lead guide
Mhm.
Ben goes, "Man, it's colder than I expected tonight." I was like, "Wait, you shouldn't be surprised by anything. We need you not to be surprised by anything because everything is a surprise to us." So it was great. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
I never felt cold at night a single time. We were in these heavy duty rented sleeping bags and jackets. What you
I
disagree?
think part of the reason that you never felt cold was because you slept like you were dead quite a bit. You did not have nearly as many problems sleeping as I did. And so I think because I was awake so much more, I got cold a few times. But I would be laying there listening to Rachel softly snore, um, thinking, wow, it is amazing. We've always said that she can sleep anywhere, and I'm a terrible sleeper. She can literally sleep anywhere,
Yeah,
anywhere.
it wasn't like the most comfortable sleep, but I think that for me, I took that bottle of sleep drops and
Uh-huh.
sleep drops help me sleep anywhere. I will link these sleep drops that I use because I never am out of them. Like I always have like 2 backups at all times because I am never out of them. I take them every single night and I sleep like a baby pretty much every single night.
Mhm.
Like I can't remember a night that I didn't. So
I
that
also took the sleep drops. And for some reason, I don't know. I am the worst sleeper ever though, so I don't know what happened. But I
not
got
take the
cold
sleep
the
drops the whole time. You only took them
I
the
took
first
them a
night
lot.
you took like Benadryl, anyway, whatever. You did not take them
Yeah.
the whole time. They are amazing. So that's what made me sleep. And I know it.
Okay, so back to night one, that when we finally got settled in our sleeping bags, we did kind of have a moment of, oh my gosh, what have we agreed to?
Did
Because
we?
we were both, you reached you reached over and grabbed my arm and said, I think you have to pray, were your
Oh,
exact
that's
words.
right. That's right. I
And
did.
so I did. I prayed and we both slept great that night.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. I did feel super overwhelmed that first night.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay, so we go to day 2. We're not going to drag out every single day, but day 2 was an 8-hour, like 4 hours stop for lunch. They like set up our lunch, like our tent. They set up everything. It was amazing. I mean, not our tent, but like the mess tent, the portable toilet. Thank you. And
Mhm.
everything so that we could have this comfortable break and lunch spot. And so we ate and then we continued on. And it's really funny that we took like decks of cards so that we could play all of our favorite card games. Did not literally, I brought those home unopened. Like you're so exhausted by the end that you just don't, like by the end of the day, that you just don't have any energy to do anything. But day 2 was the longest day of hiking, and it was also the largest gain in elevation. So I think we went 8,000 something to 12,000 something. So other than summit day, so we ended up at 12,500. J Mike told me last night, and on day two. And so that was really big. But we didn't have an acclimatization walk on day two for some reason. I guess we went down a dip and then up a dip, and we didn't have to do it, which thank goodness, because it was such a long day. So we finished day two, and I think we were feeling more comfortable. Maybe we were just like tired,
For
and that's
sure.
why we were feeling more like in the groove of things.
Well, and Ben had warned us that day two was long and hard. And so I think just the fact that we really got through it unscathed, we were fine. I mean, it was long, but we were prepared physically for it. I think it did make me feel so much more confident. And we went in to dinner, and I think I felt way better on day, because he had warned us day two and day five are your hardest days. And we got through day two and it was like, we're in great shape.
So the other thing that was so great is that we had gone with this group of 12 people. And we had been on the ground in Tanzania with them, but we had been at different things that we had been busy, and we, of course, like had talked on the bus and the van and all that, and started to get to know each other. This was on a whole different level, because when you're hiking for 8 hours, and their famous saying is pole pole, which means slowly, slowly. And so as we went pole pole the whole time, because they're trying to get you to slowly gain the elevation, you're you're having a conversation with all of these people that we had gotten to know, and now we're just getting to know them even better, and really starting to uncover layers and realize how amazing each individual
Mhm.
person on our team was. Like, the group of 12 that we went with, the conversations that we had were absolutely unbelievable. And I feel like that to me, other than summit day and like actually getting to the top and achieving this goal, the relationships that were built were absolutely hands down the most special part of this trip. It was so incredible. And then also the fact that you and I just got to sleep like we were, in the womb again.
Oh, I mean, literally, we were basically snuggled up. Yeah,
Crazy,
yeah.
but I just
But I
love
agree. I do think the conversations that I had, and just, it was just amazing. You were in the most uncomfortable situations that really you and I had ever been in, and most of us on that trip. And
Mhm.
so it was just amazing how it bonds you together. Kind
Mhm.
of your defenses come down, so you have these amazing conversations, and it just makes it so fun. It was just so fun. I kind of expected to be trudging along and kind of like surviving every day, and that is not what it was at all. It was just incredible. It was beautiful. We were above the clouds starting night two.
Mhm.
So to just see that, to be looking down into Kenya, and then to have these incredible conversations with everybody was from a different walk of life. Everybody's lives looked different. And it was just, I didn't expect that piece of it. I didn't expect to form these bonds with these people that we will have for a lifetime.
Absolutely, I know. And that's the people that were on the trip, but then also getting to know the porters and getting to know the guide and getting to know their life
Mhm.
stories. Like that was just as impactful. So then day three was a much steeper hike. And it was 4 hours, much, much steeper. And
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
we break.
And then we got to rest for a little bit and then do another walk,
Oh,
acclimatization
acclimatization
walk.
walk. Mhm.
And that was great. It was beautiful. It was interesting. Once the sun went down, you get really cold, really cold. But um we very doable day. Like physically, every day it was very doable. I mean, you would reach moments that were hard and they would give you a break. I mean, a lot of these porters and guides have done this hundreds of times, 100 plus times. And so they know when you need to.
Actually, 100 times. When we
Mhm.
started, Freddie was one of just our favorite guides. And I said to him, Freddie, this was right when we started on day one. I said, how many times have you done this? And he said, I think 100. I think about 100 times. And I was like,
Over 100.
that is insane to me. And
Yeah.
they'll go on this 6 day, trek with a group, and then they'll go home. One guy had 2 days at home and then turned around and went back out. This was the hardest thing we've ever done in our entire lives. It was
Mm-hmm.
basically worse than childbirth. And there's no chance I could have turned around
Mm-hmm.
in 2 days and done it again. Their capabilities, they're unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And I didn't realize it, and I'd done a little research before, but they can earn so much more money. We talked about it in the first podcast that the poverty is like nothing we've ever seen before. And so they can make, like, they are thrilled when they become porters and they do the, everything that they have to do, because they have this small window, because the peak season for hiking is only 3 or 4 months long. And so they like will cram in as many trips. Their goal is 10 times a season. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so anyways, that's why they do it over and over again, because it is such a small window that they can make so much money that will help their family for the whole year.
Mm, yeah. Well,
Mhm.
okay, so we finished day 3 with an acclimatization walk, which is what they always called it. You call it an acclimatization. Anyway, we call it
I
different
know.
things.
I never know how to say it.
We heard it
Hmm.
pronounced so many different ways. So I remember we went so high that night.
Hmm.
And we were looking down at the campsite, and I was like, this is like really high. By the way, we had no service on our phones at all. We had been told they installed Wi-Fi on the mountain. And so I like literally pictured myself being able to text my family in real time photos of what we were experiencing, blah, blah, blah. No, 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 no. We had no service for like 3 days.
Hmm.
None. And then we had like spotty little pockets of service, like here and there. So, um, anyway, so we're looking down and we went back down. And I thought that that walk was going to be sufficient, even though we were now at like maybe 14,000 feet or something. Like
Sounds about right. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be good. It was not. That
Mm-mm.
night and the following morning were so bad for both of us. So
I
talk about your
I
night.
woke up. Yeah, I mean, we would go to bed between what, 8 and 9 every night. It felt like,
Yeah.
about like the sun would go down. We would have dinner. There wasn't much messing around because you were freezing, and you would go get ready for bed, and you were exhausted. And so we went to bed, I think about 8:30 that night. And I fell asleep. I remember I fell asleep and I was so like, I remember feeling so tired and relaxed. I was like, yes, I'm so glad. I think I can finally sleep. I woke up at 10:30, like I had been shot out of a cannon with the worst migraine. I was like, oh no. And I had been so diligent to like drink electrolytes and do all the things, take my medicine, everything. Um, anyways, it was awful. Without going into too much detail, they also told us at the beginning of the trip that sometimes the water can maybe cause some stomach issues and things like that. All of this was
It's also a
happening at
side
the same
effect.
time.
That is a side effect of altitude sickness
Yeah,
as well, is
yeah,
gastric issues.
gastric issues.
We
That's a
could
great
call
way
it
of
that.
saying it. Um, we were very grateful for the the camping toilet. At that point, it's just an uncomfortable situation, but you do what you gotta do. But to have this migraine, I felt so discouraged. Like I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I still have to go 5,000 feet higher and I'm getting this headache. Luckily, I had all my medicine with me and I was able to knock it out, which was such a gift. I was so grateful that I had kind of prepared. I, doubled up on certain things and took all my medicine, and I was able to knock it out and get a little bit of sleep. Thank goodness.
Mhm. Yeah. And
And then we wake up.
Rebekah was the resident pharmacist, which was amazing. It was amazing to have a pharmacist on the trip with us. She's not actually a licensed pharmacist. She just knows literally everything about medicine. And so like she would just walk around and she was sort of like this little mother hen to all the people on the trip, which there was a lot of younger people in their 20s on the trip. And so she'd be like, okay, what are you feeling? Okay, this is what, okay, we've got medicine for this. And between the two of us, Rebekah and I had so much medicine. We had all the medicine and all the snacks, like just covered. And so it was, but to be completely honest, like I'm joking, it was such a blessing that you were so prepared on the medicine side because you saved so many people with the
Mhm.
medicine that you brought. Like for real, you did, including
I
me.
was just so terrified of getting altitude sickness just because I've had it before and there was no urgent care to go get
Yeah.
IV meds, you know.
So I also woke up in the middle of the night with a really bad headache, and the sleep that night was just not as good, even with the sleep drops. Didn't have anything on that altitude. So I woke up with a headache, and then the next morning, it was like I had been hit by a truck. It was I could it one time I got the flu so bad, and I was like in bed for 9 days. That's how bad it felt. It was I could not, I was weak, I was shaking, I had massive nausea, I had a pounding headache. I could not move. I remember getting up to try to put like a jacket on or something and had to lay back down. I was like, I do not know. This is day 4, the morning of day 4. The night of day 4 is when we summit. We summit. So I'm waking up with this massive altitude sickness and thinking to myself, I do not know. And I was terrified. I think you gave me a migraine pill.
I
I
gave you
took
all the things.
all the things. I took like the nausea medicine. I took all the things. And our, our guide from the company that Ben contracts with, Lucy, she's just incredible. And Lucy came and sat with me, and she shows some real tough love, and I love her, but she is tough love. And so she said, you got to go to the mess tent and you got to eat so you can vomit. I was like, no, that sounds terrible. She's like, you'll feel better. Just eat so you can vomit. So she walked me to the meth tent, probably held my hand or my arm and got me in there. And J Mike and Maya were both like, hey, are you doing okay? And they were showing me compassion after Lucy's tough love. And I was like, I don't know why my eyes are watering. I mean, it was me crying. Literally, I was like, my eyes are just watering right now. And they fed us porridge every morning for breakfast. And I got porridge in the bowl and something on the plate and mixed it around, pretending like I was going to take a bite until Lucy left. And then I pushed it away and was like, not a chance I can put anything into my body. Like, not a chance. I was so sick. But all that medicine started to kick in. And so it's funny because I don't even remember recording a lot of the stuff that I recorded. It's like I just was trying to record as much as I could because I knew that I would want it later. So I took that one in the morning, sick as a dog. I took another one maybe an hour later, and it was like we had a 6-hour hike that morning. And so within the 6 hours, at some point, I took a middle video, and then I took another video and was like a new person. So we left at what, 7 a.m. or something like that
30
to
something.
go,
Yeah.
7:30, and hiked
And
for
day 4 was that saddle. And that was like so interesting because you do like you start out and you go pretty high and pretty steep. And then you go down and it's literally kind of the shape of a saddle and you're in the desert. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't, and it was it was a gradual incline, but I remember it not being physically like super challenging. We kind of felt terrible, so it felt a little harder physically, I think, but it was just kind of like never ending that day because you were literally in the desert and you're, 14,000 feet up, but you feel like you're on the flattest desert ever. And so it was a long day. It was a long day.
Well, it was a long day if you just did the morning hike.
Mhm.
But we reached Kibo Hut. And Kibo Hut is what?
And we got there around 3.
Okay. So Kibo Hut is a just it's basically base camp for the summit. And we got there at
And a
3.
couple of routes meet at Kibo. And so there were other people there. That was the first time we had seen other people or camped near other people. There's like at a couple different spots there would be a ranger station, and this was a bigger one. And then also there were these huts. We didn't know they were in existence at all until this point. But there are some guide companies and you stay in the huts and not in a tent along the way. The Rongai route, that is not an option. Just so you're clear, if you're trying to do this trip, you will be in a tent the whole time on the Rongai route. So
Yep. Yep. Um, so then we got Wi-Fi and we called our husbands for the first time in days. Like we had not talked to them in I think since day one. And
but they had been tracking us. That was the cool thing too, is that we were able to send them, the guide company we were with had a GPS tracker on us, so we could send them the link. So they could at least see our progress that we were making, but there was no communication.
yeah. Yeah. And so we called our husbands and we're exhausted. You're just all the things. And oh my gosh, like it's just like, oh my gosh, I think that, the emotion, we both cried so hard talking to our husband, but I was also like really happy. So I remember like laughing and crying and then laughing and crying. And I just was like just these waves of emotions. And it was 6 a.m. here. So my boys were asleep. So they weren't there. And it was just, they weren't there on the phone, but just being able to FaceTime with Derek was like, it gave me so much strength. So was it the same for you?
Same. And I kept telling Jeff, these are happy tears. I promise these are happy tears, because you just felt so overwhelmed with emotion. And I think also when you get to Kibo, you get to see what you're going to hike to summit. And it felt very overwhelming to me. When you look up, you're like, wow, okay, that is what is ahead of us in just a few hours. So I think it was like all of these emotions combined.
Mm-hmm. I just kept reminding myself, this has been done by many, many people before. And if other people have been able to do this successfully, we can do this. Like we can do this. We've been training for this. We have the willpower. It actually does not come down to, I don't think physical strength as much. Like, I don't think that it really has to do, I think being in shape is way better, but it really comes down to mental fortitude, mental strength at the end. That's what it boils down to. So you can be as fit as possible, but if you're weak mentally, you will not make it. So we went, they fed us, and then they said, go take a rest. And then they woke us up and fed us dinner. And then,
and that was fun, because that was really the only day that we had a like extended amount of time at camp. And so I remember sweet Maya, who was one of the girls on the trip, she was so precious. We got to sit in the sun. We both had like our journals out, and we ended up like, we just got to talk. And it was such it was a little bit warmer. The sun felt good. I felt like so refreshed in that time. And it made more sense to me, like why we started hiking an hour earlier and just the way it all played out. It was so nice to kind of have a breather at the campsite. I talked to Jeff. I felt better there. We got some lunch, and then we sat in the sun and just, I don't know, just got to talk. And I felt very refreshed during that afternoon.
Well, then it was time to go to bed, and they sent us
Dinner first at 6. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dinner, like you said.
And they're like feeding us, and we're like barely pecking at our food. Like you like literally just cannot eat anything. And they said, okay, go to sleep, and we will wake you up at 11 p.m. because we will summit at midnight. So at 11 p.m., you're going to get dressed. You're going to push all of your stuff over. Anyway, we're going to leave the tents here. Somebody's going to guard your tent, and we leave at midnight to go. And there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of like some nerves, but I think like a lot of adrenaline.
And anticipation. I was excited.
Yeah. Yeah, so was I. I was very excited. I was like, we've trained for this, we've come this far, and now it's go time. Like this is truly what we are here for. And so got up, had porridge for breakfast and whatever else, and that we barely ate. And then we left at midnight, and it was pitch black. We were all super, super bundled up and had all the layers on that we could like take some stuff off. And we had headlamps, and we got into a straight line, and they said, it's time to go. And we just started walking one foot in front of the other, and just not even really sure what was ahead of us. Like we really didn't know what to expect, what was coming, but we just started walking one foot in front of
Kind
the
of
other.
shuffling up the mountain
Mhm.
almost, because it was the later coming down, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but you're on this like almost like gravel the whole way up this last summit day. And in the dark, it feels like even a little more like, ooh, just a little kind of shaky a little bit. So you're really kind of taking small steps, almost like a shuffle up the mountain in this straight line. And
Mhm.
I think it was a gift that it was dark, because I think you couldn't see how steep it was and how far up we had to go. All you could see was one headlamp, one person kind of ahead of you at a time.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think that might be one of their secrets. I think that they make you
100%.
summit at midnight because it's like a mental thing.
Mhm.
And so they told us that we would be getting there about sunrise. And so we were like, cool. And at Kibo Hut, there's this, which is what they call this base camp. So there's a big sign and it says 5 hours. There's three summit points: Gilman's Point, Stella Point, and then Uhuru, which is the very top. It said 5 hours to Gilman's Point, 5.5 hours to Stella Point, 6 hours to Uhuru. And so in my mind, I was like, sweet. We've done longer than 5 hours. We've done longer than 6 hours. We can do this. Like, this is totally fine. Um, Things did not work out in that order. You have to go through something called Jamaica Rocks, and Ben tried to describe Jamaica Rocks to us, but it was like massive boulders and massive rocks that you're like climbing around and on top of and through, and it is crazy. And I just remember thinking, like, I would turn my head to the left and the right and be like, that's a pretty steep fall. Like that, if I fell, if I lost my footing and I fell, I'm pretty sure I would get a concussion and maybe die.
Mhm.
Like it was
Mhm.
so steep. But I mean,
I didn't
all the
expect that
people,
part of it.
yeah, I didn't either.
I
So
knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be challenging, but I did not. I no, I could. No one can prepare you for Summit Day.
no, no, there
Mhm.
is no amount of preparation. There's really not. So we got to Gilman's Point at five,
Six, almost six,
6 o'clock, six,
almost
which is
six.
in
Mhm.
my mind when we were going to be getting to Uhuru at the very top. So I was like, well, we are behind schedule. We need to, we whatever. So you stop there, and one of the guys, J Mike, on our trips, had gotten sick on the way. Maya was really feeling bad. J Mike was really, really, really feeling bad. When did your headache start?
On the way to Stella Point. So from Gilman, I was fine getting to Gilman. At some point between Gilman's and Stella is when I was like, oh no. In that moment, I understood why they encourage the eating so much. I had no fuel left. I had not eaten nearly enough. Like when I go back with Jeff, it will be a completely different ballgame because I had no fuel left. And you're using camelbacks the whole time. And I had been really good about like blowing the water out so it wouldn't freeze in my camelback. After the altitude sickness really kicks in again and I started to get this horrible migraine, you forget all about that. So my tube froze. So there's just things that that made it harder. I had not fueled my body enough for what I needed. And so it got a lot more challenging at some point between Gilman's and Stella.
Yeah. And they try to tell you, like it's
Mhm.
not their fault. It's like you
Mhm.
just kind of don't know what you don't know. So everybody's short on water, everybody's exhausted. We've literally been hiking through the entire night, and
Mhm.
it's pretty unbelievable. So we get to Gilman's Point, the sun starts to kind of rise, and I have the photos, the view, it was truly spectacular. Like it was truly
Mhm.
spectacular. And I snapped a few photos. They gave us some hot tea. Casty at Gilman's Point. Casty, which is one of our guides, and he was absolutely amazing. He said, let me
He was a
take,
porter. He wasn't even one of the guides. He was a porter. who they take up a porter on the last summit day. So he saved us that day, saved us.
And we had already built like such a strong relationship with him. Like he was just we had just gotten really close to him. And he said, okay, girls, like, let me take your packs. And he took my pack and he took Rebekah's pack and he put one on the front
And Maya's.
and one on the back. He took Maya's also.
Yes, he had
Did
all 3 packs.
even know that.
Mhm,
Oh my
mhm.
gosh. And he carried, I mean, he's like, I don't know, 8'5". He's so tall. I don't know what it is. He's like, who knows? He's probably hanging them off of his pants or something. Like but he carried all of our packs so that we could just focus on, all we had was our trekking poles. And we just focused on taking, literally, when I say one step in front of the other, it took every single bit of our energy. And here's the most heartbreaking part. Rebekah didn't realize that there was a spot in the middle between
Mhm,
Gilman's Point, where we got the first time, and then Uhuru at the top. She did not know about Stella Point in the middle.
mhm.
And so she looks at me and she's starting to feel really, really bad. And she looks at me because she sees the sign like up ahead and she goes, we made it. And she gets like teared up and choked up. And I was like, no, we didn't. But I don't think I had the heart to tell you. I don't
Oh,
think
you
I told
didn't,
you
you didn't. Mm-mm.
until we got there.
Because I
But I
kept
was like, if I
looking.
tell her, I think
Mhm,
she'll turn around. I don't know
yeah.
that she'll
Mhm.
make it.
We got to Stella Point, and I remember looking, and people were still going. And I looked at the elevation on the sign at Stella Point, and it's like 18,885 feet. And I remember going, huh, this isn't the top. This
Mm.
isn't the top. Like, and literally feeling like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. And somehow we mustered it. I kept
Well,
remembering
a
them
lot
saying
of
that
us,
if you have to get oxygen, you have to turn around. And so I
yeah.
remember thinking, I will not stop. Like, I'm just going to keep going.
It's just honestly, it's the altitude. You just
Mhm,
feel, and I think going through the night, like just hiking
mhm,
all through the night, even with the adrenaline, everything, it just wears off. And
mhm,
it just was an exhaustion that I've never felt before. So we get to Stella
mhm.
Point and then keep going, and we're like, okay, this is the home stretch. We finally, I mean, we are walking over these like icy
There's
patches.
snow everywhere.
There's
Mhm,
snow everywhere. And I'm like, this is really slippery. And I said to Rebekah at one point, if you slip on this ice, you must grab hold of me because it's like it sloped down. And I was like, I'm pretty
mhm.
sure that slopes down to like death. So if
Well,
you,
and because from Gilman's all the way up to Uhuru, you're walking around the crater of the volcano. And so
Mhm.
you're kind of walking along this edge. And so you're up high
Yeah.
and then it goes down into this crater. And so I do remember when you were saying that, looking to my right, being like, huh, I think I would just keep sliding into the snow and the ice. And some people like sleep in the top of the crater and things like that. So it's not like I would like fall into a
Who
actual
is
crater.
who is doing that? Oh my gosh. And
But
all I know
I,
is there's like a glacier on the left of us and
yes,
clouds. All I see are clouds. And I'm like, clouds are nothing. So it's not like clouds. It's not a cartoon where the clouds, my kids are like, what did the clouds feel like? And I'm like, I don't know. I did not get close enough to feel them. Like, no.
yes.
So we keep taking, and I mean, we're laughing now. I assure you, there was no laughter. Like it took everything in us. J Mike is sick as a dog. Maya, everybody is like giving everything they have. Brian, Lori, Kelsey, everybody is pushing so hard. And so we finally get to the top. J Mike, we're like about there, and J Mike turns around and he's like, guys, we're all gonna go in together. Like we're gonna summit together, you know. And so he was just amazing. And we walk up together and I mean, we made it and it's quick. It's quick. You're up there and your altitude sickness is in full force and it is intense. And so you're not wanting to kill any time up there. So we got up there, we took photos, we took a group photo, which was amazing. And this was the most emotional part. Darren, who we just love on our team, we didn't know because you really kind of don't know. You're one person in front of the other. Everybody's going at different paces. And so we thought Darren had turned back. Like we didn't think he made it. We sat down to take our picture at the sign, and sweet Darren, our sweet Darren, he comes walking up and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, it's Darren." And we're all crying and we're all
Mhm.
hugging. And I mean, the achievement of getting to the top, and we're just like so proud of each other,
Mhm.
so proud of ourselves, like just, I mean, it was absolutely incredible. It was like nothing else. And so Darren gets in our photo, and it
Mhm.
was it's like you're just as happy for them as you are for yourself. Like we were truly such a team, and we were helping each other the entire time so much that I was so worried about Rebekah being sick, Maya being sick, J Mike being sick, that I was telling J Mike last night at dinner, I felt the altitude intensely at the top, like for sure I did. But I think that physically, I actually felt pretty good. My head was hurting, but I think I physically felt pretty good. But my nature is like to be like, I'm like an empath where I feel people's emotion and pain and stuff. And I think that I was so overcome with you being sick, with J Mike being sick, with Maya being sick. I think that I that's what was bringing me so much anxiety up
Mhm.
there at the top, is like I was just worried about y'all. And
Mhm.
so it was incredible. Do you remember much of the top?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I do remember feeling so much relief that we were there. And just overwhelmed with emotion. I just cried and I cried and I did. I felt like I was so grateful that like God had provided everything we needed to get up there. And I just remember feeling so many different emotions,
Mhm.
but also at the same moment being so ready to get back down.
Yeah.
Like you did not want to just hang out up there. You can't breathe. I mean, you're at 19,000 over 19,000 feet. And it's, I think when I pictured it, we were like it was just gonna be this like moment. We were gonna hang out up there. There's really not much of that. Like you take your pictures, we were probably up there, what, 10 minutes, maybe 15.
Yeah.
And then we start going back down. And in our heads, we had achieved the hardest part and going down was going to be so much easier. And that was not necessarily the
Well,
case.
we were wrong. We were wrong. So we
Hmm.
summit at like
Very.
8 a.m., 7:50 or something. So about 8 a.m. So now at this point, we've been going for 8 solid hours through the night, and we think we've arrived. Now this is
Hmm.
easy peasy. Oh no.
Hmm.
It was so, because you are still in that altitude,
Hmm.
getting down that mountain, getting from Uhuru back down to Gilman's Point. What was
Hmm.
it was very hard.
Well, part of the problem at first was that sweet Casty, who is at least 6'5", starts leading us down the mountain. He's like a gazelle running down the mountain, and we're like poodles trying to keep up. And I'm like, at one point we take a break, he stops, and this is not very far after. And I looked at Casty and I said, Casty, I will not be able to make it if you go this fast. You have to slow down. And he was like, okay, okay, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, pole, pole. And I'm like, pole, pole, Cassie. Because he was going so fast and you were still over 19,000 feet. There is no air. And I didn't understand kind of the up and down we took to get to Stella Point, to get
Yep.
to Uhuru. And so there was a little bit of going up to get back down sometimes. And that is very challenging at that altitude.
And then going back down through Jamaica Rocks. So like we had
Mhm.
to navigate all these massive boulders and rocks and stuff that we went up, and it was
And
really
you have no
challenging doing
food,
that.
no fuel. So you are done. There is no
We were all out
it's
of water, I
taking
think.
and it was taking everything in you to get one boulder at a time. I mean, it was just exhausting,
And
exhausting.
Rebecca's migraine was in full force at this point.
Mhm. Mhm.
Everybody is completely depleted and exhausted and done. And so we had to go back down through those boulders, and then you get down to something called scree. And
Mhm.
scree is like loose dirt and rocks, and you basically are skiing through this. So like literally you're going side to side. Like I remember we're like skiing down kind of like on my left foot leading. And then when my left leg would start burning, all my muscles would start burning, I would like turn and do the right leg. And then you would go straight on for a little while. And like, and oh, I fell so many times. I would just
Mhm.
fall and fall and fall. I had scree in my underwear. Like scree was everywhere. I don't even think I told you that.
Which is really hard to do considering how many layers we had on
Right? Like
underneath our pants.
how did that even happen? But I did it.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
scree all in my boots. Like it's just everywhere.
Mhm.
So, but we would take breaks and Lucy was just amazing and got us there. But we would break and then she'd be like, okay, let's keep going. And the hardest part too is like, you can see the bottom of like where we were headed, but like it was so exhausting what we had been through that it's almost like you're looking down there and you're like, I just don't know if I can do it. Like I just don't know if I can physically do it. I know that for myself, I reached deeper than I think I ever knew possible. I think I
Mhm.
reached to a deeper level that I didn't even know existed inside of me, to be
I
honest.
think I think I reached deeper exactly like you. I realized after we were done with that day, I was more capable of anything than I ever dreamed I was. But I had to reach deeper physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it is still so overwhelming to think about because on all three levels, on every level you can imagine, you are completely depleted and exhausted. And you have to reach so far beyond anything that you think you have inside of you. And I think like, we had talked about it. I was like, okay, Lord, I can't do this. You have to help me. And you just have to reach so far and then be so dependent on the people around you. I mean, it just is it's a different experience than anything I've ever experienced in my whole life. But I came back and told my husband, I said, I am capable of so much more than I ever dreamed I was. And so I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world,
Yeah.
anything in the world. It was miserable. It was awful. It was harder than childbirth, like you said. I would not trade it for anything in the world because I am a different person because of it.
Yeah. So we've got to wrap this up because we're over an hour,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
okay, so we get down. Rebecca had her guide came and met her. Casty had given us our packs back, and so we had been wearing our packs. Our guides came, I mean, our porters came, sorry, our porters came, took our backpacks, and
Musa, he's so wonderful.
uh,
Musa was my guide. I mean, my porter, and he was so precious. Yeah.
and so he basically like literally held Rebecca's arm and I'm walking. So like she would stop and we have this routine where I play with her hair and, like try to relax her, like rub her shoulders to try to relax her when she has a migraine. And so she would stop, we would stop and we would take a break. And these porters probably thought we were insane, but I would like come over and I would like
Mhm.
rub your shoulders and I'd be like, okay, okay, okay. And
They were with us for the last, like, what, 45 minutes to an hour. And that I remember I saw Musa walking up towards us. And I remember almost like crying in that moment because I realized quickly he was there for me to
Mhm.
get my pack, to get my poles, and to get me down the rest of the way. And he looked at me and he grabbed my arm and he said, lean on me. He said, I promise I will get you down this mountain. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it was what I needed to go the rest of the way, you
Ugh,
know? And so it was
that
amazing. It was so
was
amazing.
so hard. So we got down, I mean, after just excruciating misery, we get down and we dig deeper and we're like, and we got to our tent and you got medicine out to take
Mhm.
because then we both collapsed on each other's side of the tent. We weren't even on the right side. And
Right. I
we like
forgot.
literally, and we took off our boots and we laid down and just passed out. I mean, we fell asleep so hard.
And it
We
was
did,
11:30 a.m. at that point. So we had hiked for 11 and a half hours.
yes, that's right. That's right.
Mhm,
11 and it was 11:30. You're right. And so we
mhm,
laid down and we just passed out. Like, I don't remember anything. I just remember we just fell asleep. And then they woke us up for lunch, and you were still really sick, and you were like, I cannot go. I got out for a little bit, don't think I ate anything, and then came and got back in the tent and went back to sleep. And then we had to pack everything up. Lucy had to come. We had to get some help packing our stuff up. And we
At
got our stuff
2:15. So we had to leave camp at 2:30.
at
So it was a 3-hour break.
that we got to rest from everything we had been through. And then we had another 5 hours.
5.5 miles.
How
It
long?
took 3.5 hours, but it was 5.5 miles down
I'm pretty
to our
sure
base camp for night 5.
800 hours, because I thought I was going to die. To me, that second hike was one of the hardest, like, almost, it rivals with actually summiting. Like, it was so hard for me to dig down after everything we had just done, resting for 3 hours, and then having to get back up, put our boots back on and our packs back on, and get down there. And then that night, neither one of us slept very good. And I did.
And barely ate still. I mean,
Yeah.
you're so exhausted. And that is what I will do. I will feel my body next time. I just didn't know.
And then the next day is our final day. And it was a 12-mile hike.
12 and a half.
12 and a half miles to get down off the mountain. And oh my word, like, and we were like, but we're going through the rainforest, and now we're done, and we are like ready to get off. Like, we were ready to get to the bus. We were ready to get to the hotel, take a shower. And we flew through that. I fell so many times. It was so like muddy, rainforest, wet, but it was gorgeous. And the
beautiful.
weather was fantastic, and it was a gift. It was for sure a gift, but that day felt like forever also. It really did.
Because we hiked like 14 and a half, 15 hours
the day
on
before.
day 5. And so you would normally recover from that. No. You get up and you do 12 and a half miles the next day.
Yeah. And we left super early in the morning, and then we had like still a 4-hour bus ride to get back to the hotel. Like, I mean, this was intense, this whole thing. So, I mean, you've already answered the question. So would you do it again?
100% I would do it again. It's the greatest thing I've ever done, other than, giving birth.
Yeah. I said immediately, because Shama, one of the guys on the trip, gosh, she's so fantastic. Shama was like,
so great.
Literally that night, the night that we finished, so that we summited, and then like whatever, got down to dinner the next night or whatever. I don't even know how to describe that, but we were down at dinner, and Shama said, yeah, I would do it again. And I was like, are you insane? No, like, I am one and done. I will never. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. I will never do that again. And I told Derek that. I don't remember when we got service or when I talked to Derek, but somehow I talked to him at some point, and I said to him, I will never do that again. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. And then within about 24 hours, I was like, I think I could do that again. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I'm ready. I'm ready to go back. And a week after we got home, I think about a week after we arrived home, maybe even not a week, because it was that Sunday at church. We got home on Tuesday night, Sunday. So 5 days later, I was talking to one of our friends, and I said, if you told me that there was a flight out tomorrow to go do this again, I would go back tomorrow. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. It was the best thing I have ever done in my entire life. It was amazing.
Like a life changing to your core kind of trip. We will never be the same. We will never be the same. People have asked, and I always say, I cannot recommend this trip enough. If you ever get the chance, take this trip. I had met a guy on an airplane.
We will prepare that.
Yes. Yes. That is true. I met a guy on the airplane when we were going to Breckenridge. And it's so funny. He was young, 28, 29 years old, and he was an incredible guy. And we were talking and he said, you have so much joy, you know, this, that, and the other. And he said, give me some advice. Like, what is your advice? Because like, I have my sweet family with me, you know, everything. And I said to him, keep saying yes to things. And this is before we had gone on this. I knew Kilimanjaro was coming, but we hadn't done it yet. And I said, keep stretching yourself and saying yes to things. I am so glad I took my own advice because this stretched me and grew me in ways that I could have never prepared for. And it filled me with this confidence and this bravery and this courage to keep saying yes to things that I would never normally do. I need you to know that Rachel and I have never camped 5 days collectively in our entire 43 years of life,
I'm
much less
pretty
all
sure
at one
that
time.
we camped for one night in the backyard with Dad when we were like in
Yeah.
elementary, like as an adventure because we begged him to take us camping. Like I'm pretty sure that's the
So
extent of my camping.
we're not hikers or campers or anything like that. So to say this was a challenge and out of your comfort zone and everything, like I can't even begin to tell you, but it was the greatest thing maybe I've ever done in my whole life.
Absolutely. I know.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
we got to wrap this up because we just had so much to say, but thank
Mhm.
you for reliving that
Yes.
with me. And I'll send you
So great.
some flight options so we can book our trip back.
I can't wait. It's going to be great. What a way to wrap up the summer. One more
Yeah.
time.
But you know, I'm so grateful. You and I have been on a lot of adventures and we've done a lot and we've seen a lot and I'm just grateful that we got to do it together. I really am. I'm so grateful that we got to do it together and experience it and now bring all of those memories home together. And it's something that we will always have. And I'm so grateful.
100%.
I love you.
I love you.
Okay. We'll talk soon. Bye.